Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Common Discourse podcast. I am Boogie Bumper. I'm joined in the studio live with our friend Varun Prasad. Welcome, Varun.
How you going, mate?
Very good. We've also got on the line a very sick, a very infected, a very toxic male, the voice of reason, Adam J. Hello there, sir.
Hey, how you going? Funny you should bring that up, Boogie, because someone actually accused me of being aggressive. When was it? Last week or something like that, while talking politics.
Really?
The guy's, your aggressiveness is not needed.
Oh.
And yeah, well, that's and well, I was like, man, if you're reading this as aggressive, or the conversation we're having, of course, not the conversation we're having now, then I mean, it's a then we have to start thinking about your judgment and about other things. If you think this is aggressive,
you
then
ain't
what else
nothing
do you,
yet.
then you don't know nothing about anything. See you later. Anyway.
Well, it's good to be back together, aggressive or not. I feel very threatened already, and as you should, because how long has it been since we've been together, Varun? Maybe 5 months?
Oh, at least, 4 or 5 months.
So we decided we better get back into it, and we're probably going to do at least once a month heading into the big elections in the United States in 2020. But there's plenty of other things going on as well. We've got the EU and Boris Johnson talking about Brexit. We'll get into that. We've got a little bit of Australian news to share around, and then of course we'll get into the hot topics of the day in the United States. But we thought we'd just relax a little bit, take it easy, not do something too structured for today's show. The first item I have here, though, guys, if I can draw your attention to the screen, and it adds, if there's any way that you could probably just stop walking so hard, because all I can hear is wheezing. For those that don't know, are we allowed to say this? Ads has quit smoking a week ago.
Yeah.
So he's trying to
I'm
work.
proud of it.
He's trying to work the toxicness out of his lungs by doing bushwalks.
That puts the aggression comment into perspective now.
It certainly does. Yeah. It makes sense all of a sudden.
Did you have your hands wrapped around his throat?
No, nothing like that. No, I'm more verbal when it gets to not smoking and lack of nicotine. I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, politics is good for that. soothes the soul. Let's hear from Donald Tusk in regards to what's happening recently with the Brexit deal. Let's have a look.
Mr. Johnson promised the EU to come forward with a solution that would work for all. A solution that would not only satisfy the hardcore Brexiteers, but also solve our well-known and legitimate objectives: to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland, to protect the Good Friday Agreement, and to ensure the integrity of the single market. Unfortunately, we are still in a situation in which the UK has not come forward with a workable, realistic proposal. A week ago, I told Prime Minister Johnson that if there was no such proposal by today, I would announce publicly that there are no more chances, because of objective reasons, for a deal during the incoming European Council. However, yesterday when the Irish Taoiseach and the UK Prime Minister met, they both saw for the first time a pathway to a deal.
That's right.
I have received promising signals from the Taoiseach that a deal is still possible. Technical talks are taking place in Brussels as we speak. Of course, there is no guarantee of success and the time is practically up. But even the slightest chance must be used. A no-deal Brexit will never be the choice of the EU.
The thing that stands out to me, guys, first of all, in that is it seems that making hard... I've just got to mute you for a sec, Ads. It seems that making hard deals and then saying that this is the deadline day and then just changing your mind and going and creating a new deadline day. And it seems to be not only a UK thing now. Don't you find it strange that we've been told, Varun, and then we'll go to Ads for a comment. Don't you find it strange that we've been told that the EU has all the cards here, and now we're seeing actually the EU is now saying, well, we said that this would be the last day and we would announce that there's no deal, but Boris and the president of Ireland have been talking, so I guess we'll move it out a little bit. What does that indicate to you? Does that indicate anything? Does that indicate, the EU needs the UK?
Yeah, well, what it indicates to me, we've heard a lot about the EU, pulling all the strings and all that, which I think they kind of do. They dictate what happens, and they're trying to dictate to Britain what they're supposed to do, but they're presenting it in such a way that all the decision, the ball is in Britain's court, right? Now, my question is this: we've got the problem with Ireland. They call it the stopgap, right?
Yep.
Now, what's so hard about this deal? I don't really understand.
Is it the stopgap or the backstop?
Or the backstop, one of those fucking things. But I just don't understand what's so difficult about it. Is it because Ireland then will not have the same sort of trade policies with the Britain that it would have because it's part of the EU now?
If I can, I think it's more to do with Northern Ireland, because you have a lot of businesses in Ireland that go freely over and across and trade Northern Ireland to the Republic and back and forward. And if there's some kind of new, sort of like a, pseudo trade embargo between EU countries and non-EU countries, then that's going to severely impact, the economy on the island of Ireland, both Northern Ireland and the Republic.
So basically the EU is saying that if there is a clean Brexit or hard Brexit, Ireland will not be in a position to make the decision with Britain to keep that sort of free trade policy going.
I think what the UK wants is a relaxation of the rules for Ireland, to take an island-specific approach to this. Ads, is there anything you can add to this?
Well, I want to echo what you were saying to start off, Boogie, and that's that they're constantly moving these deadlines. It's really, frankly, like Groundhog Day. I'm just waiting for Bill Murray to show face. And basically, this is it. This is the last deadline. This is the last deadline. This is it. And this has been going on for about 6 months. With regards to the Brits, well, I think it's pretty simple that, they all decided that they want to buy a Lamborghini The problem is that they're not making enough money, and they don't know how to get there.
Right.
And for the EU, well, you know, the EU and what Donald Tusk, I think, is doing here is they're still hanging out that, you know, there might be some type of pathway to some type of second referendum.
Yep.
Who knows?
Because even though, would it be a fair statement to say, even though the leadership of the EU, the Commission, Donald Tusk, and the public-facing spokespeople for it adds, even though they put on a brave face and say, well, who cares about the UK? We don't really care. The EU needs the UK. If it can't be in the EU, it at least needs it to be like a receptive partner in some way, shape, or form, doesn't it?
Well, needs is maybe a strong word. I think the right word here is would like. I mean, it's better with, you know, for them with
much
Great
better.
Britain,
Such
Britain
a large
in
economy, right?
Well,
But-
here's the thing. I mean, if
Of
you've
course,
got
but
Donald Trump,
ultimately, it's GB's decision. I mean, if they don't want to be in it, then they don't want to be in it, and Donald Tusk can't put a gun to no one's head.
if Donald Trump, if Donald Trump makes a deal with the UK or with Britain, right, post Brexit, and that thing goes ahead, I think that puts Britain in a very strong position, and I think that will kind of submit the EU. No, at least, you know, kind of pacify them.
I think the Brits are getting a bit of cold feet with this whole trade deal with the Yanks because, quite frankly, you know, they look at Donald Trump and say, well, America's has to be winning on all these trade deals, and obviously, if America's winning, that means Great Britain's going to be losing. I mean, you can't have it. You can't. You know, I guess you could frame it. They could frame it in a great way, but you know, obviously, Great Britain will be the junior partner in a trade deal with the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
And with Europe, in a trade deal with, I guess, in the European Union, they at least can look at, there's level pegging there with Germany and the big economies of the EU.
Is there level pegging though? Because part of the problem, part of the problem, ads, was people in the UK being disgruntled with the fact that they weren't able to have much control over their own trade policies, that the policies that were coming out were coming from Brussels and not from Westminster.
Yeah, I think the bigger problem though is cultural problems, like border problems. That's the main like drive behind the Brexit movement, right?
Some might say the Brits have never been European in the true sense of the word, you know, and that might sound stupid because obviously Britain is in Europe. But I don't think the Brits see themselves as their own thing, generally, culturally, don't they? Like, oh, no, we're British. We're not European. We're British. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree with that. But the problem here is that they were on equal footing. It's just their politicians were too cucky with regards to the negotiations of all these, you know, settings in the common market and rah.
That's true.
I mean,
do you think when you take that into consideration, has Boris done more? Like, has Boris surprised you in how that he's driven this to a point now where he's got the EU now going back on their own deadlines and stuff? Because this, I don't think you would have seen this under Theresa May, like rightly or wrongly. I don't think she had the political will to really take the hard necessary steps, and it seems Boris has come in and with the opinion that if I don't do this, we're fucked, like in terms of re-election and stuff, right?
I think whoever the leader is, they're fucked, basically, because I think the central problem here with this whole Brexit situation is that the political class in Great Britain just does not believe in Brexit. Just doesn't believe it. I mean, even Boris Johnson, you know, everyone can say, oh, yeah, you know, finally we got our guy in there that's believed Brexit. Boris Johnson doesn't believe in Brexit. I don't believe that for a second. I think he's an opportunist. I think, you know, the winds blew a certain direction and suddenly he was Mr. Brexit.
But he was pretty strong. He was pretty strong on it.
Yeah, he was pretty strong. But he came late when there was an opportunity. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Nigel Farage, but he's been consistent for a very, very long time. Well, we're talking years here.
30 years at least.
Minimum skepticism of the EU. But Boris came in late. Boris came in, you know, I believe it was maybe a year out, and that's being, I think, pretty kind. He was very, and you know, that's the whole political class are trying to get something done that they don't necessarily believe in, and that's very difficult. That's very, very difficult.
Well, I mean,
when you're working,
look at Jeremy Corbyn, for example. Now, Jeremy Corbyn was on record for 30 years saying that he doesn't believe in the European Union either. And now, now he's the guy that's maybe we should have another vote. I mean, let's not rush into this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Jeremy Corbyn was leading the Brexit negotiations, then I guess a lot of people will feel a lot more confident, because he really does have a record of skepticism towards the EU for various reasons. I mean, ideologically.
Okay.
Pardon me.
We can get back into trade later on when we touch on American stuff. But Varun, you wanted to talk about a couple of things in regards to Australia. First of all, you wanted to discuss this article here. Australian couple released from Iranian detention, Jolie King and Mark Firkin back in Australia in good health. Australian couple Jolie King and Mark Firkin are back in Australia after being released from an Iranian jail. In a statement released through DFAT, the couple said they were extremely happy and relieved to be safely back in Australia with those who we love. The Perth couple had been detained for several months after being arrested for reportedly flying a drone without a permit and, as we said off air, Varun, potentially over some Iranian military installations, which is probably not advisable on the... I don't think that would be in the tourism brochure in Iran, just quietly.
Larrikins.
Yeah, just kids having fun, mate. Yeah. Mate, what's your problem? We're just flying a drone over your army base. Fuck, mate. Get a grip.
Yeah. Have a beer. Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, it's ignorance, isn't it? This is what cultural relativism does to people's minds. They just think that, the freedoms that we enjoy in the West are applicable all over the world. Now, the thing that was interesting over here was that Australia was actually holding an Iranian individual who was due for extradition to the USA. Mm-hmm. I think he was caught up in some kind of scandal of bypassing the military sanctions,
right?
That the US imposed on Iran. But he's not going to be extradited to the US, and I think it's almost like there's been a prisoner swap.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a bad look for Australia.
It's like a player trade.
Yeah, so they've been kind of questioned about this. The situation, and Australian government has pretty much said that, look, it wasn't a prisoner swap, and that's all we're going to talk about it, because we do not want this to sort of affect future relations and future sort of the situations that Australia can get into.
Mm-hmm.
So I just found that I thought that was pretty interesting.
Are you saying, if I'm reading this right, is your concern that this might this might indicate some kind of further evolution of how the Iran situation is progressing more generally? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you saying that this might be a precursor to it might indicate that the relationship with Iran between the United States and obviously her allies, of which we are one, are you saying that this is another indicator that things are heading in a certain direction where it's coming to some kind of impasse? Is that what you mean?
Well, I wasn't going in that direction. What I was trying to say is if this is a prisoner swap, it just looks bad for Australia, because it shows that they're kind of weak when it comes to negotiations. They've got an individual that the US was after,
mm-hmm.
And it was done. He was going to be extradited.
Yep.
Yeah, and now they pulled him away from that process, and we've got our 2 Australian citizens back, which is good. Look, I think they're stupid, but it's good that they're back on Australian soil. It just doesn't look like Australia has much of political sway that they can, protect their citizens overseas when they're in trouble. And if that's the case, the world is watching. The world will know where our weaknesses lie. I know Australia's just a middle power, we're obviously not the US,
mm-hmm.
but still, we don't want to, show, that we're weak.
We've got a big brother, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So we like to start fights and then go, hey, America, they're picking on us. Can you come and...
Can you help us? By the way, we're not going to extradite the guy that you want.
We will, however, send you a couple of hundred of refugees that you don't want.
Yeah, how many did he send? I can't remember.
We're a bit of a little shit like that, aren't we? Anything to add, Dad? Anything to add to that?
Well, as far as I heard, I haven't really been keeping tabs on this story too much, but what I heard was that Australia must have got the go-ahead from the Yanks, basically, to I mean, Scott Morrison was in America, I believe, a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And maybe this was part of the discussion. One thing I will add, though, is that it doesn't matter if you're in Iran or any Western country. I mean, flying a drone over a military installation will get you arrested.
I wonder if they flew one over Area 51, they'd probably be shot.
Yeah, that's right. And this actually reminds me of a story. My mum was actually nearly had a digital camera. These were the days of, that weird time. It wasn't quite phone cameras yet. It was digital cameras. It was the age of the digital camera.
Yeah.
The Apple iPhone hadn't come out, and it's like 3-megapixel digital camera. Oh my God!
You mean I could just plug it into the computer and the pictures? That's wonderful. Look at this.
That's right.
Look at this, sweetheart. It's amazing.
Yeah. And my mum was in London, and she decided that the eagle on top of the US Embassy was worthy of a picture. Apparently. Yeah, as you would. And then she got approached by 2 MPs, military police coming.
Yeah, right.
And they started flicking through a camera and actually deleted the photo of the eagle, which is...
Jeez.
This was just post 9/11. So,
keep on rocking in the free world.
That's right.
Freedom, baby. If we could just stick on that very topic, that's amazing. It's serendipitous that you brought up that little memoir, because I've got this fantastic article. As you know, after an election, and especially after the kind of election we had in Australia, Anthony Albanese took over the leadership of the opposition, and it's a time period where if you're the opposition, it's very difficult to get any kind of traction whatsoever. You've been basically humiliated. You've lost the unlosable election. Scott Morrison, even if people don't like him, they have to understand that he's generally very popular. His popularity ratings are going higher and higher, and the government's approval rating is actually going up and up week after week. So it's a very productive honeymoon period for Scott Morrison. And if you look at the election, because we haven't even had a chance to speak about the election, Scott Morrison, for mine, can set up like a Howard style dynasty at this point. If you look at like the mechanics of what happened in that election, all of the potential backbiters and backstabbers that he had in his ranks are now gone. Malcolm Turnbull, Julie Bishop, Christopher Pyne, right? That whole faction of people that orchestrated the removal of Tony Abbott and the replacement of him with Malcolm Turnbull, they're all now finished. Scott Morrison was handed the reins. His party thought that they were going to lose, and he won, which means that his authority as leader of the party is now unquestioned.
It's concrete, yeah.
He's the miracle man, right?
Cemented, sorry.
He's Michael Jordan in the Chicago Bulls. Yep. Like, he can do no wrong.
Yep.
So now, he's in the honeymoon phase. And so Albanese is struggling, who himself is quite a popular figure, believe it or not. He's struggling to get any traction whatsoever. And then he comes out with this, which is just amid all of the allegations, ads and Varun, about Australian politicians being in bed with the Chinese government. Anthony Albanese, I don't know who advised him to take this hot take, this boomer hot take, but here he is. Anthony Albanese blasts Liberal MP Tim Wilson in Hong Kong. And I thought, what the hell is going on here? Labor leader Anthony Albanese has sledged government backbencher Tim Wilson for joining Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests, accusing him of focusing on himself. Opposition leader Anthony Albanese has blasted a federal government backbencher who has marched alongside pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Liberal MP Tim Wilson says he's inspired by the movement in the territory, with protests against Beijing nearing the 5-month mark. Mr. Albanese says the coalition backbencher is always focused on himself. I think that Tim Wilson's opinion of himself differs from that of his colleagues and certainly of me. This is a quote from Tim Wilson. They're on the front line of a contest between competing worldviews and have picked liberal democracy. As a liberal Democrat, it's not hard to be inspired by that. And then you just think like Anthony Albanese coming out and say, well, he's a fucking idiot for doing that. It's not really endearing yourself. It's funny, like the China thing. If you look on Twitter, which I think we all agree is basically Australian Twitter is pretty much a pro-Labor activist working group, essentially. It's amazing. Like Peter Dutton came out and slammed China about 24 hours ago, and his comment feed was filled with Labor people saying, I fucking hate Peter Dutton, but I love that he said this.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, the China thing in regards to Hong Kong, it actually looks like legitimately for the first time in a long time an issue where both sides are in general agreement that this is wrong and, we support like the protesters of Hong Kong. And now you've got even like sort of lefties saying, well, the Chinese are basically taking over our universities. Like the kind of shit we were saying 5 years ago and getting called a racist for it.
It was just
the kind of shit that Pauline Hanson was saying in the late 1990s.
1996. Anthony Albanese, I mean, he may as well be wearing a fucking NBA jersey as he's talking, you know?
You reckon he might run for NBA commissioner? When
Probably.
This is all done?
They've got their eyes on him.
Absolutely.
You know, everyone's scared of China except for Trump, which, that would have been a good segue, but we haven't moved.
We'll see. Well, I think we're going to get to trade soon.
We'll see.
To this new trade deal, and it'll be interesting to see what's part of this trade deal in regards to Hong Kong.
Sure.
Of course, it won't be on the document, but will the US
there's a bit there. There's a bit there that we can chew on. I've got a bit here that we can go over.
Right.
But just in regards to this, ads. First of all, we know each other pretty well, so I think I'm safe in saying that you would probably be on the side of the Hong Kong protesters in this current tiffle. Would that be a fair statement to make?
Well, yes, I think that's without any doubt.
Yeah. Don't you think it's amazing that Anthony Albanese pulled this rein on this one? Yeah, I just see this as a really dumb thing to say.
It's not going to himself in the foot.
It's not going to end his his leadership of the opposition, but in
slow him down.
Well, it's just a stupid thing to say.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah, look, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt even and say this, that I think he's for the Hong Kong protesters, but he's just some kind of, political opportunism just bubbled to the surface.
Like you just have to be oppositional for the sake of being oppositional.
That's right. But, so Albo has his good days and Albo has his bad days when he can't even construct a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So, this was a bad day for Albo. And look, yep.
I thought it was a bad day for Albo last week when he came out and said Australians deserve a new government. And I'm like, hang on, didn't we just have an election?
To be fair, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, everything's going against him, right? Where Scott Morrison's going so well. What does he have to complain about? So, he lashed on to the very first thing that he saw. And
if we can take
without thinking.
Well, okay, you can argue with me if you think I'm wrong here, and that's fine. I would have thought the best way forward for Albanese, if I'm being completely objective and cynical about this, would be the first thing I would do is say, okay, which coalition policies are generally very popular with our own people? And then I would come out and support those things just in the honeymoon period. And then, like, after you get through that first sort of 12 months, then start to turn the attacks around and say, well, actually, we've supported things that you've done in the past because we believe in it. And so we are actually working towards, we want a better Australia, blah, blah, blah. But on these particular issues, you've let everybody down.
Okay. You could have done that. But do you think, there's pressure on Albanese to throw a rock through the window? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much.
They're just trying to get negative press. They're trying to generate negative press.
I think the central problem with Labor is that they went into the election with a bold plans, massive plans.
It was the woke election.
Part of it was, the climate change policy was very, very, I don't know how to say it. Well,
draconian.
Pinko to put it lightly. And
it was Chinese.
And the coalition.
Pro-China climate plan.
The coalition came to the election basically saying that we're going to be great managers of the country. I mean, and that's a bit frustrating thing for Labor people. Is that they had no plan. And that's the great thing about arguing with people that support Labor since the election is yes, they had no plan, and that's what was so fucking refreshing.
Exactly.
That a government that understands its own limitations, its own, I guess, where it needs to stick its nose in and where it doesn't, and it just basically came forward and said, "Listen, times are pretty good. We're just going to, do adjustments here and maybe there."
Scott Morrison's
roll with the punches.
Scott Morrison's election, direction, his campaign strategy was, "Hey, we're not them."
Yeah.
Like, so vote for us because we're not them. That's pretty much what it is.
And the media was actually hounding him for it.
Here,
we're not radicals. So,
the media was actually making fun of Scott Morrison and say, you got nothing. That's your whole plan, that we're not them.
Yeah, I just think Albanese probably needs to do better. And when it comes to Hong Kong, like, here is one issue where you can stand on your own. Like, ads, next time you can't be walking around, man. This sounds awful. little on-air coaching there.
You should see the views, though. It's hectic.
We can't see anything. It's just audio. And right now, it's cancer. It's the sounds like cancer. Okay. That's all right. No, it's all right. I'm turning you down. It's okay. So let's get into trade. We were talking about this trade deal. US-China reached tentative phase 1 trade pact. This is in the Australian. Scott Morrison has hailed somewhat of a breakthrough, kind of, sort of, perhaps, maybe. We'll see. The limited trade deal.
It's like you're saying it with a shrug. It's like, it's kind of a breakthrough.
It's sort of a good thing, I guess. Clinched between the United States and China overnight, but says it's too early to decipher what it means for Australia. As part of the deal, the Trump administration will suspend a tariff hike on $250 billion in Chinese imports that was set to take effect on Tuesday, and China agreed to buy $40 to $50 billion in US farm products as the world's two biggest economies reached a ceasefire in their 15-month trade war. I'll just say my bit and then I'll go to you guys.
Can I just jam in here and
Sure.
just say one thing?
Go.
How can you suspend a thing that didn't even fucking happen in the first place?
Well, it's
So there was
rhetoric,
a
isn't it?
Well,
It was due to
that's
happen.
all I wanted to say. Carry on. That's it.
So these are the couple of things.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, I focus more on, you know, how these things look in the press. You know, that's what I try to focus on, and
Yep.
you know the perception game. So in the perception game, I would say, like I've been saying for a long time, that Donald Trump makes a lot of threats and doesn't follow through on said threats. And people say that this is a flip-flop, you know, because that's the attack. Oh, he's flip-flopping, blah, blah, blah. But to me, it's never really been a flip-flop. It's more of you give the worst possible scenario, and then you try
work your way back from
you
that.
try and negotiate from that position. And so this, for me, is just, like, if I'm being very cynical about it, it's just another one of those. I don't think that they were ever going to impose the $250 billion worth of tariffs on China.
Yep.
And I personally wouldn't even have a problem with it if they did. But, I don't think they were ever going to go that far. And the other thing that I've noticed too, Ads and Varun, is the Trump administration relationship to the farming sector has always been a little touch and go.
After election,
After the election, it's been a very productive attack point. Now, I don't think it's the kind of thing that would lose you an election in 2020, his relationship with the farming sector, but it is the kind of thing where the press in those middle America purple districts in between LA and New York, those farming communities, it is the kind of thing that local press can seize on to back local Democrat candidates and say, we want to do more for the farming community. The Donald Trump administration isn't doing enough for the farmers. And you can probably win a few congressional seats there like that. So I think that should this deal happen, and it is still a should, but at this point, all signs are pointing to it will, a $50 billion trade deal between the United States and China to purchase American farm products ends that as a negative talking point.
Oh, well, it throws cold water all over it. And one of the things I just wanted to say, as you were speaking about Trump's sort of, you know, making those threats, it's all part of his shtick. You know what I mean? He's a very volatile figure. So some of those threats he will act on, some of them he won't. And that kind of puts that uncertainty in the opposition's mind. So they go, this guy's crazy. You know, is he going to do it or is he not? So it kind of forces them to come to the negotiation table. Now, if you were, let's say Obama, for example, I mean, he wouldn't make any threats. He would go and bow to anyone who's willing to see him bow, pretty much, right? He was bowing in front of Saudi Arabian kings. He was bowing to the Iranians.
Well, Trump bowed in front of the Saudi Arabians as well.
Yeah, okay, he did. Oh, fair enough. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that at least Trump comes out and makes the threats.
Yeah.
You know, Obama never did that.
Sure.
So he was predictable. This guy isn't.
Yeah, and I think this is something I've said to American Democrats ads in the past. I said, and, you know, they generally don't believe me, which is fine. They don't have to. But, you know, I think sometimes when we're doing commentary, no other country is written about as much as the United States is in terms of politics, especially now since Donald Trump has taken over. And I think because we have that sort of outside looking in kind of perspective, we can be a little more cold and a little more analytical than, say, someone involved in the American political system who probably has an emotional attachment
They're
to
balls deep.
Right,
whichever
which is
way.
fair enough. You expect that.
Yeah.
But something I've said to American Democrats in the past, guys, is I don't think you understand how the rest of the world views Barack Obama. Barack Obama is only a strong leader in the eyes of half of the voting population in one country, that being the United States. The entire rest of the world saw Barack Obama, generally speaking, as a very weak leader who would allow small powers to bully him into submission. And he was generally a laughing stock.
Yep.
And I don't think they get that.
No. Look, Obama had the only things that he had that going for him in terms of people admiring him were very superficial sort of qualities. Like he had charisma, he had a
He's
way
on
of
ESPN
speaking.
doing the college basketball draw, you know.
You know, and he'd make a joke, and you know people would laugh. Okay, he had all that, but when it came to actual political sway, he didn't really have much of that.
No.
The only people who would kind of
And he was hamstrung in the United States with, of course, he had an oppositional Senate and an oppositional House of Congress for most of his presidency.
Yeah.
So he really couldn't do much.
and he was handed a really bad economy.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
A few things. I think if you're constantly making threats and you're shown not to go through with them, that in itself becomes predictable.
Sure.
And that's a problem for Donald Trump. I just want to backpedal here and let's go to foundation principles here and what this was all built on. What this was all built on was that the trade deals, the multilateral and the trade deal in particular with the Americans and the Chinese was completely and utterly flawed. I mean, it was an absolute disaster. Now, whichever way you look at it. Now, that was what was sold, you know, by, I guess you could say, the economic nationalists in the US. And, of course, Donald Trump tapped into that. And it was part of the wave that caused him to win the election. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about that. Now, by the end of that, you know, that Donald Trump was going to go and he was going to stick it to the Chinese. No one negotiates like Donald Trump, you know. People were getting pushed to the side. Obama's an idiot. So-and-so is an idiot. And if at the end of all this was just $50 billion of farming, of agriculture, like I'm not trying to, downplay it here, but there are other issues here. There are manufacturing. There are intellectual property. We haven't heard too much about that yet. I'm not cutting you off, but just to add to it.
Sure. What I'm reading here, this is from the Herald, so it's not, pro-Trump by any stretch of the imagination.
No, that's fine. No, that's okay.
Trump said Trump said the deal also included some provisions on intellectual property and would open up China's market to American financial services firms.
Beautiful. And we'll see the end game here.
And one more line adds.
Sure.
It says we've come to a very substantial phase 1 deal, which was what I was going to kind of, rebel.
Yeah, like this isn't the end.
Like this isn't the end. This is the beginning. So I mean, he's not going to come out in one shot and say
the easy stuff.
Yeah, okay, but you start with the easy stuff and work your way through it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you can build on
and like
this.
the other thing you were saying that he becomes predictable. I mean, he did put those tariffs on China that no other president has ever done before. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
The earlier tariffs. So I mean, I know they weren't 250 billion or million or whatever it was, that he was proposing this time. But, he did do something out of the ordinary. And at that time, when he did it, it was seen as like, what the fuck? An American president had actually put tariffs on Chinese products.
Sure. No, I agree with that. I mean, that he went hard, but the question will be, the people that voted for Donald Trump, will they feel that he negotiated hard enough? And that's the only thing that matters with regards to the election.
I think,
and this is.
Sorry.
Yep.
No, sorry. Go on.
Yep. No, it's okay. Go on.
I was going to say they will see this as a win because, as Damien was saying, this is now throwing cold water all over that talking point that Trump is hurting the farming community in Middle America because he's actually fighting for them. Because if the talking point continues and this deal goes through, well, it'll just feed into the fake news narrative that Trump always goes on about,
It's
right?
a big one logistically, I think, because, pardon me, again, taking a pretty cynical, like, let's look at numbers here. If you want to talk about the it is mag. Are you getting swooped out there?
I'm at Jurassic Park, mate.
Holy shit.
The pterodactyls.
They're yellow crescent cockatoos.
Right. Yeah, they are noisy bastards. Let's look at the numbers here. In 2020, like on my little corner of Periscope, right, myself and James on Trust and Verify, I don't think anybody else was taking the threat from the Democrats winning back the House as seriously as we were. And for months leading up to the midterm elections, guys, I was bringing up Democratic candidates in purple districts and say, look, the Democrats are being really smart here. You need to stop pretending that they're all dumb. They're running like military people and ex-businessmen in districts that Donald Trump won, which are traditionally purple swinging districts, right? They're going on a very moderate platform here. They're basically saying, we agree with a lot of the Trump agenda, but we'll just change, like, say, healthcare, you know? And that was a very smart play because locally that plays pretty well. Same thing applies here, I think. If you're looking at the numbers, you know, there's a lot of farming counties in, like, say, Pennsylvania, which is a key battleground state, right? There's a lot of opportunity here, I think, in certain districts for Trump to gain momentum because of, you know, 50 billion. It's positive press for about a week. Let's be frank. But it's something. It's something.
Sorry to jam in there.
Yeah.
But it's very positive for these farmers, and it's no doubt that this was one of the top priorities. Because a lot of those states that are razor thin, let's be, you know, 30, 40,000 votes that went one way or another.
Oh, man, some congressional seats, we're talking about a few hundred votes.
Yep. And you know, these are, you know, heavy farming districts.
Yep.
And you know, it's very, very important for Trump's re-election. I mean, every vote counts. And he was getting bad press when it comes to this whole farming scenario that, you know, the farmers weren't selling the soya beans to China, and how horrible it is.
Yep.
So it's very important. Now, you know, I think that Trump just needed something good to talk about from, you know, these last few weeks. That's another thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so.
Well, I think that's a fair thing. Like, it's about time he got something of a win to kind of break through the negative press. If we want to keep on negativity, let me just play a little short clip here. Do you want to we'll get into Syria and Turkey while we're hot? I think we're going all right.
Sure.
This is just a short clip from SBS. I've got a few clips back to back here that I want to go through with you, and then we'll go for comment.
Beautiful.
The full United Nations Security Council will hold a closed-door session to discuss Turkey's offensive in the coming hours. The Arab League has also...
And just a quick side note, I don't know anybody who really generally cares what the United Nations Security Council does. Isn't Saudi Arabia on the United States Security Council? And it's like, hey, well, okay, how many Yemenis have you bombed?
Were they also leading the human rights?
They were on the human rights
Council.
That's right. So putting that to one side.
Yeah, but to be fair, they're letting women drive now. So.
Oh, good. Yay. Hey, feminism.
Who best to know about human
Welcome
rights
to the 21st century.
Yeah, well, for me personally, there's a lot of things you could say about Saudi Arabia: human rights abuses, throwing homosexuals off rooftops, bombing Yemen. But for me, the biggest mistake they've made in the last 100 years is letting women on the roads.
That's right.
announced an emergency meeting as President Trump has come under withering criticism for pulling out US troops.
Withering criticism.
President Trump delivering his rationale, a foreign policy of getting US soldiers out of harm's way.
We have no soldiers in the area. You know, we're getting out of the endless wars. We have to do it.
Downplaying America's long-standing connection to the Kurds.
They didn't help us in the Second World War. They didn't help us with Normandy.
Fuck.
That's a bit harsh.
I love it.
It's just flat out dumb.
No, but it's
anyway.
Yeah. But see, I know it's dumb.
Yeah,
I know it's dumb to you, but this is the way Trump says that. Well, if you want to talk about allies, let's talk about the allies that we've been fighting side by side with for 100 years. Like, that's his way of saying that. Like, so people, because he's like, you know, you guys are making out like the Kurds are our best friends. You know what I mean? He's like, no, they didn't help us win Normandy. That's his way.
One of the gripes that I guess you could say the West has against the Middle Eastern countries, I guess you could put it that way, is that they never put their soldiers forward, their people forward to fight this, and it's always us fighting. Now, you can't really say that about the Kurds.
Mhm.
They've had about 7,000 soldiers die. I believe it's somewhere in the order of 20-something thousand casualties. Men, women, children, the whole, kit and caboodle, the whole, they ran to the pump, they ran to the front line while the Syrians ran to Europe.
Sure.
And this has been a long-standing relationship with them since, the 90s. And even, back end of the 80s when Saddam started gassing them because they wouldn't play ball.
Yep. They were promised they were promised their own country after World War II. Kurdistan.
Sure. And, this is, we can really get deep into the weeds about this whole, decades long thing. But I'm talking about recent history here that, the Kurds have put in and even, we have Australians and I know a lot of Europeans have traveled to northern Iraq and Syria to fight ISIS with the Kurds.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, they got dogged big time, and there's no, there's no
Okay. All right.
avoiding that.
Okay.
There's
That's
just no
fine.
avoiding that, and
That's fine.
and they're pissed, and they should be.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll explore that a little
Yep.
more. I do want to play a couple
Sure.
more clips here, which
Go
will shamelessly bolster my own argument and diminish yours.
Beautiful.
I'm sure. This is President Erdogan, who is essentially, by and large, being given a free pass by the world's media to invade Syria and attack the Kurds because it's all
Yeah, I agree with that.
Donald Trump's
Yeah.
fault. But have a
Yeah,
listen.
yeah.
Have a listen to the good member of NATO, old mate Erdogan. Have a listen to this kind of shit that he's been saying in the last 24 hours.
Ey Avrupa Birliği,
There is a translation coming up. Don't worry.
kendinize gelin.
Hey,
I was like,
European
whoa,
Union,
Gotta brush up
get
on
a
my
hold
terms.
of yourself. Look, I'm telling you again. If you describe our operation as an invasion again, we'll take the easy road. We'll open the doors and send you 3.6 million refugees.
And let's
So-
make no mistake. This is why Russia is trying to take Turkey under its fold, because it's that gate that can they can weaponize immigration and fuck
Exactly,
Europe.
because I just want to get that on the record for people who talk about refugees and it's all our fault and stuff. Okay, that's fine, but you do have to understand here that there is adults in the world, and these refugee migration patterns are used as weapons by people like Erdogan of Turkey. Like you just heard it there. If you don't let
that's
us
all he's
invade
got.
Syria,
Absolutely.
if you don't let us invade Syria, we will flood your white guilt-ridden countries with refugees and handicap you. Like he's
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
these people,
Absolutely.
right? Not saving
Yeah,
them. He's
Greece
not
did the
helping
same
them.
thing.
He's
Yep.
using
using
them. Okay.
Absolutely.
Here's
I
one.
think, there's no doubt about that.
So that needs but that needs to be on the record, ads. Like this is the guy we're
does.
dealing with here. Erdogan is not
It
an
does.
innocent party in this. He is the aggressor.
Absolutely not.
Like it's
He's
not.
one of the most dangerous people in the region.
All right, Trump
and-
isn't the aggressor here, though. Trump isn't the guy
Oh,
that's
no,
killing
it's not.
Kurds. Trump's not killing Kurds.
No.
Erdogan is.
No, but it is. It
Yes.
is kind of like a separate issue in the sense that I feel sorry for the Kurds. They like Ad said, they put in, and now they can't enjoy the fruits of the labor that they put in fighting these people.
Mm-hmm.
They were allied with the West. Well, you could say allied, but their interests aligned. Right.
That's a better way of saying.
Their interests aligned. My fear is do we get down, let's say 10, 20 years down the line, do we get a Kurdish Osama bin Laden rise from the whole situation? Because remember, that's how Osama bin Laden started.
Yeah, and the Mujahideen fighting Russians.
Well, he felt betrayed by the Americans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, they
And the
armed him
Kurds
up
are
to
going-
fight the Soviets.
And the Kurds are going to see Trump's action as a betrayal. And the other thing I wanted to point out
Well,
is that
can we play one more clip and then we'll go to you for that to finish that thought?
Okay.
Because I just want to tie a bow around.
Yeah, fair enough.
The reporting.
Yep.
So, guys, this was Steve Mnuchin earlier today. I may think like 6 or 7 hours ago, just before the latest Trump rally. This was an announcement he made. The White House response to Turkey. I'll just play a few seconds of it.
So I just met with President Trump, and he has authorized and will be signing a new executive order giving the Treasury Department, in consultation with himself and Secretary Pompeo, very significant new sanctions authorities that can be targeted at any person associated with the government of Turkey, any portion of the government. This will be both primary sanctions and secondary sanctions that will be applicable. The president is concerned about the ongoing military offensive and potential targeting of civilians, civilian infrastructure, ethnic or religious minorities. And also, the president wants to make very clear it is imperative that Turkey not allow even a single ISIS fighter to escape. Again, I want to emphasize at this point, we are not activating the sanctions, but as the president has said, he will provide very significant authorities based upon the continuing efforts.
So there's a couple of ways you can look at this. You can take the route that, well, okay, the White House is responding, but then you can also take the route, I mean, we were just talking about Trump makes threats and doesn't follow through on them. So what do you think? Okay, now let's open it up. However you want to come at this, whatever angle you want.
Okay, well, I just wanted to finish off my thought previously.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to get that.
That's fine. It all kind of ties up. But I thought, you remember Trump was getting heavy criticism for sending troops into Afghanistan again when he didn't really need to, and now he's pulling out from the Kurds, which I think it's almost like a reversal. He shouldn't have been sending troops into Afghanistan, and he should be keeping the troops, kind of fighting alongside with the Kurds, keep them as allies, and keep the pressure on Turkey. Now, the way I read him, sending troops into Afghanistan was to kind of surround Iran, pretty much. But now whether he sends them in or not, it just looks like a bad look when he's sending troops there and pulling them out, from where our allies need them. Well, not our allies, sorry, America's allies need them.
I think there were a lot of people at the time saying the move into Afghanistan is more about cutting Iran off directly from Russia, because obviously, they have to get to Russia somehow, because Iran and Russia are, close trading partners. So,
well, now if there's an economic attack on Turkey, that's going to push Turkey further into Russia's fold.
I think maybe the voice of reason, Adam J, can speak more to this. I generally think you could be right. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I think the potential for Turkey and Russia to become best friends, I think that is hyperbolic, way overblown.
Not real best friends, but Russia is going to use them.
These people hate each other.
They do, but you remember, Turkey flew was it a Turkish plane that flew into Russia's border, or Russian plane that flew? Yeah, it was Russian's plane that flew into Turkish border. It was shot down.
It was a Turkish guy that shot the Russian guy, wasn't it, at the art gallery that time as well?
And, Russia didn't do anything about it. Russia didn't do anything. They extended an olive branch and, and a handshake, of friendship.
Yeah.
And the reason is exactly what we were talking about before, the weaponized immigration towards the EU.
That's what I was about to say.
What's that?
Because if Turkey has NATO behind them, that's that could be a reason why.
Yes, and no, that, and also where Turkey's geopolitical position.
But there's also, I think this is less about Turkey and more about Syria. Syria is vital for the Russians. Now, say what you want about the Assad regime, Russia is the only country that was actually invited into Syria.
Yep.
The United States weren't.
Yep.
So to say that the United States should remain in Syria to help the Kurds immediately is a furphy, because you're talking about a country that was not welcome there. Arguably, the United States invaded Syria to help the Kurds. Okay, so that's one. But there is various, there's various resources and army installations and air bases. There's a port in Syria that the Russian government controls. So they're worried about, being isolated and having their gas pipelines and their oil pipelines being, cut off by any encroachment, not only from the United States, but from Turkey and other powers in the region. So I think this is a lot more to do with maintaining their interest in Syria than it is necessarily about Turkey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, I think it's a bit of both. A lot of factors there. Like in any which way you look at it, it all makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So, looking through all those perspectives, Turkey is a must for Russia, whether they hate them or not. They got to keep up that facade of friendship, or at least political alliance.
Ads.
Well, I think the first thing to realize about the Middle East is there are no good options at all. And another thing that I would say about Syria is that the Russians do want to keep the states in there. The Russians want to keep the states in Syria because then America gets the bad press if things go wrong in Syria, and the Russians can just sit at the side and just not give a fuck. I mean, and that's always how it's been these last few years. And that's why Trump wanted to get out of Syria. So the only country, I guess you could say, quote unquote, superpower or large militarized country in control of Syria is the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
And if something goes wrong in Syria, then you can just blame the Russians, and that's a position that Russians aren't used to. And when that happens, is you start bleeding because this goes back to I remember even John Bolton talking about this. This was way before. It's a few years back, before he joined the Trump administration, and then of course left the administration not long ago. But
he left.
Was talking about that. Yeah, well, was booted or whatever.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for everything, John. I'm sure you've got other things to do. If you'd like to clean out your desk, it's been real fun working with you, though. Thanks, John. Oh, by the way, we're pulling our guys out of Syria now. I know you'd like to bomb the shit out of those people, but we're gonna go. Sorry, John.
Yeah, and he was talking about how the ideal situation would be for the Russians to stay in Syria and for them to bleed their military.
Correct.
That's what you want. You want Russia to stay in there. You want them to use their resources and to feel the pain both through public relations, through the press and other ways. So militarily, and I think that Russia is very happy. This is, I wouldn't be surprised that Russia is stoking that there might be some type of, that Russia does want, Turkey to come in and start massacring the Kurds. So this forces the United States to come back into Syria.
Yeah, or it allows Russia to really ramp up their control of the region as well.
Now the question is, I mean, this is something that the Trump administration and Trump himself should have been thinking about. That, of course, if they were going to leave northern Syria, then the Kurds and the Turks, they just can't help themselves. Mm-hmm. They just cannot help themselves. They absolutely hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And to get some type of assurances from both sides that they would keep it classy before he left. Now, from what I know, this was completely blindsided everyone in the White House. But, again, I'm not in the White House. I'm not a fly on the wall, so I can't say, I know this by 100%. But from the reports that I've heard, is that Trump nearly unilaterally just decided that he's pulling out of Syria, and there was no even discussion with the Turks about keeping it classy with the Kurds, and that's where the mistake was. If you make a decision and then 2 days later you're threatening another country with sanctions and they're linked together, that means that there's something not right here. That something didn't play out here.
Can I push that back on that a little bit and say, to say that any withdrawal of American troops from any theatre of war in the Middle East or from other parts of the world is sudden, I think is a misnomer. This was Trump's election platform to withdraw troops. So the fact that it's happened 3 years after he won the election, for me, indicates that they've been dragging their feet on it. I thought, to get these people out of there would have been done a lot sooner. So to say that it was like a snap decision, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's accurate. There is no way.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that it was a snap decision. A complete flip-flop. I'm just saying that, yes, I know that he wanted to get out of Syria. Everyone knows. And I'm happy he's out of Syria. I'm happy the Yanks are out of Syria because, you know what? There's nothing to gain there. It's just a shit fight. And let the Russians deal with it and just sit on the side and laugh at them. But what you got to get out of there right, and you got to cover your ass so you're not coming back in there. That's the trick here, and I think that's the part that was neglected. That sure, he's been saying that he wants to get out of Syria, and there should have been plans in place to make that a smoother transition. Now, another thing here is to remember is the amount of troops we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
These are a few outposts.
50.
This is not, this is not. How many troops are we talking about here, Damien? I'm sure you know.
That's around 50.
Was it?
Around 50 troops?
Yep.
50 troops?
Something like that. That's what I've heard anyway. I could be wrong.
50 troops?
Yep.
Yeah, 50 troops. Now, is it worth keeping those 50 troops there to avoid this fucking shit fight that we're going to have now? That's a question you got to ask yourself.
Well, can we send in Blackwater? Can we send Blackwater in to do
it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so...
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, yeah, if we're talking divisions and battalions and brigades, I mean, it's not even a full... There's more kids in a school bus in Western Sydney than there is fucking in... it's just fucking crazy.
Can I say, though, the thing with you've got to do it right, you've got to come out, cover your own ass so you're not going back in there. For me, that's a furphy as well, because in that region, they will always be able to manufacture reasons to say that America should go back in. I mean, it's going to be a powder keg constantly. So you're never going to leave a situation like is happening in Syria and say, okay, everybody's getting along really well now. We sat down, we had coffee and cake. It was a very productive meeting, good people, tremendous people. And now we're never going to have to be going back there ever again, because there's always going to be something that somebody can point to and say, hey, you need to come back here. The other thing is, for me, like, if you are going to take the position of withdrawing and become more focused, if you're going to go towards more the Ron Paul style of foreign diplomacy, that being let's have everybody at home and not isolation, is it? Which isn't a really, I think that's a loaded term, and I think you agree with me too, because it doesn't mean that you cut yourself off from the rest of the world, Yeah,
you're just moving towards that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like free trade's a loaded term.
Exactly.
You're just moving towards it, Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So if you are going to go down the Ron Paul route of foreign engagement, then you have to do it knowing that at some point you are going to upset somebody. But I think there comes a time where talk has to end, and you have to actually see troops coming home and landing on the tarmac. You know what I mean? They've been talking about it for 10 years. The fact that this is happening, yes, people are going to say, we're betraying our allies and stuff. But okay, so if not now, when? Like, is it 100 years from now?
Yeah.
Is it 200 years from now? How long is it going to take? Because these areas have been at each other's throats for thousands of years, not 10.
Yeah.
So if not now, when? That would be, the thing that I
kind of agree with that. I think that this is a horrible, tough decision.
Yep.
But one that had to be made.
Varun Prasad.
Yep, unfortunately.
Yeah, like I said, we've spoken about it before. Poor Kurds, I do feel sorry for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, look, it's a good point. How long can America keep its troops there? These fights, the Middle East is like a crucible. There's always pressure. There's always fighting. It's always going to be like that. And America can't just be indefinitely entangled in their spits.
Okay, I think that's fair.
Look, I just, I was overseas not long ago and had a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about climate change, funnily enough, and we kind of like had a bit of a back and forth, and he goes, the one thing that I do want to happen, this person was telling me, was that I want us to end our dependence on fossil fuels, so we can just leave the Middle East and so they can just give it to each other as much as they want, just fire every AK-47 they got to the bloody death and grind themselves to a fine dust and be done with it. Because I mean, really frankly, if they didn't have oil, people say, oh, we're in there for the oil. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, we're in there for the oil. But if they didn't have the oil and we didn't need the oil, then fuck them. I mean, and this has got nothing to do, I mean, with race or religion or nothing. The way that they are acting, I mean, and their total unwillingness for a little bit of restraint. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, just war yourselves to death and see us later, and we'll build a fence around the whole region, and that's it, mate. Maybe chop the Jews out. Yeah, that's it, go for it.
It's definitely one of the more creative climate change solutions I've heard. But so far, but as it stands right now, it's probably the best. It's probably the best one we've heard.
And it was a joke.
There's a couple more cynical things I want to touch on, like just towards the end of the show here as we begin to move to wrap it up. Donald Trump had a rally in Minnesota yesterday. And from all reports, it was sort of classic Trump. It was 2015 era Trump in this campaign rally. So I've just found a couple of little minutes here which I thought were fun. Let's have a little look and see what kind of form the president's been in after a few weeks of bad press.
You know, I never say this. I don't think I've ever said it in a speech, but maybe they'll find out if I did. Then they'll give me Pinocchios. He said it before, but I don't know if I ever said it in a speech. But you know, I make as president about $450,000, right? I give it away. No, wait. I don't care. I don't care. I never hear anything. Can you imagine if I didn't? I give it away to, you can only give it. You can't keep it. You can't actually make a gift. You can give it to your different agencies. So I can give it to health, I can give it to transportation, I can give it to military, but I give it away all the time. Now, and if I ever did, but it's $450. If somebody stays from, let's say, a Middle East country in one of my hotels, and we charge him $392.53 for staying, and I never heard of the guy, and I don't want to hear about him. They say Trump is getting rich off our nation. I lose billions being president. I don't care. It's nice to be rich, I guess. But I lose billions. If somebody rents a room someplace and they pay me 2 months in rent or hotel fees, I never heard of the people. I never know who they are.
Tremendous people.
They say emoluments. Nobody ever heard of the word emolument before. Emoluments. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I tell you, it's cost me billions of dollars to be president. It really has. And at some point, I'll probably have to prove that, and I look forward to doing it. It's very easy. It's very easy. And there is nothing that makes me happier than making that decision to run and win and straighten out the mess that these people have created.
There you go. I just thought that was fun.
I like the preciseness of the pricing.
$392.53. He does have a tremendous way of speaking. Like, he actually turns his money, you know, it was generally accepted wisdom that if you had a lot of money, you don't talk about it because you want to be able to connect with average, everyday people, right? For some reason, he's able to get around that.
Yeah.
Just in the way he presents himself. You know what I mean?
Because they see a rich person who's like them, but rich.
Yeah.
So that gives hope that, not that I'm saying in their conscious mind, but
I get what you're saying.
one of us is one of them, you know, and that kind of bridges that gap.
Sure. And it does, I love the fact that he mentioned that too, because that is one of the things that annoys me the most. It's not about being a supporter of Donald Trump or not. The fact that people say he's getting rich being president is just plainly false. Like, he's lost billions of dollars. Like, companies have stopped stocking his stuff. People won't, he lost the Miss Universe pageant, for example. There's been boycotts everywhere.
Boycotts against
Trump
Ivanka
stuff.
stores and fashion line.
It's just plainly false.
He's the only president who's actually gone in and lost money. Every other person who became president actually gained money, right? Didn't Obama just buy a whole new mansion in Martha's Vineyard?
Yep.
You know, up at the Hamptons or whatever?
Yeah, he got a big $50 million book deal or something.
And not to mention the Netflix deal.
The Netflix deal as well. Yeah. Anything to add to that, Ads?
Oh, no, I totally agree with what you guys are just saying about that.
Okay. Yeah. Other things making the news. You sent this through, Varun, before we started.
A personal moment now. Gathering and reporting the news has been my life's work. 33 years, the past 23 right here, since the day we launched Fox News Channel in 1996.
He's been around a while.
The opportunities afforded this guy from small town Mississippi have been many. Fox News has allowed me to travel the country and the world, gathering the facts of the day for you. At Columbine, Katrina, Iraq, Israel, Lebanon, 9/11, and every life-altering event along the way.
So this is Shepard Smith. He's announcing his leaving Fox News. I'm in the camp of many. I suspect he'll probably have a job at CNN or MSNBC by the end of the week. President Trump, however, was asked about what he thinks of Shepard Smith just before he got on a plane to head out to Louisiana for another rally today. I thought you might be interested to see what Donald Trump thinks about Shepard Smith leaving Fox News.
Mr. President, did you or your administration pressure Fox News to get rid of Shepard Smith? No, I don't know. Is he leaving?
the dumb questions, though. Mr. President, did somebody in your administration pressure Fox News to get rid of Shepard Smith? Because that will be the bullshit line that's on Brian Stelter this weekend.
Mr. President, did you or your administration pressure Fox News to get rid of Shepard Smith? No, I don't know. Is he leaving? Oh, that's a shame. That I don't know. Wait, did I hear Shepard Smith is leaving? Is he leaving because of bad ratings? Now tell me, I don't know. He had terrible ratings. Is he leaving because of his ratings? I mean, if he's leaving, I assume he's leaving because he had bad ratings. He had the worst ratings on Fox, so there's a reason. Why is Shepard Smith leaving? Well, I wish him well. I wish Shepard Smith well.
It's awesome.
That's class.
That is best when he does stuff like that.
Was it bad ratings? I hear it was bad ratings. He had terrible ratings.
My best memory of Shepard Smith was when he was talking about Jennifer Lopez, many years ago, and I think the line was that the line was she's gonna give him a block job, but ended up saying blow job. They cut to the scene and they come back to him and he goes, "I'm really sorry about that."
My favourite memory of Shepard Smith was a recent one where he was talking about there's no evidence to suggest that criminals and terrorists are in the migrant caravan coming up from Mexico and Honduras.
Yeah.
And then like people were tweeting him that very night saying, actually, there is FBI like reports saying that there are terrorists. And he's like, well, that's just fake news. Yeah, that wasn't good for Shep. How do you see the media landscape shifting? I was rather naive in that I thought eventually they're going to have to come off the ledge. Like eventually they're going to have to step back off the window ledge and come back to a little bit of normality. I never expected them to become pro Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought that we would become a little more sane, and we've actually gone the opposite way. It's gotten far worse recently.
Yeah, it has. Oh, yeah.
They seem to only find sanity when they do mistakes, like the New York Times report on the whistleblower, which kind of, said that he contacted Adam Schiff before.
Oh, yeah. Do we want to talk about the whole whistleblower thing?
Yeah, if you want, we can.
Well,
go into it.
From what I understand, Ratcliffe, Nunez, a couple of others, Jim Jordan they've spoken about a closed door hearing they had with this whistleblower.
Yeah.
And the whistleblower in that meeting, of which Adam Schiff is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, it's turned out that this whistleblower and Adam Schiff work very closely together. They know each other. Revelations in the last sort of 6 or 7 hours before we went live here today. Joe Biden's very close to this whistleblower. It just stinks. It's dirty. You know what I mean? It stinks.
But what was the position of the whistleblower? I mean, what was
that I don't know.
Position of him?
That I can't tell you. But what we do know is he's very close to both Adam Schiff and Joe Biden, like in a relationship level.
He was in the intelligence community. Isn't it? Wasn't he?
We don't know. The first one,
I thought he wasn't a CIA analyst or something.
Second-hand information from what we got from the first one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was second-hand information of a whistleblower. That was just absolutely a good laugh. But I mean, if it's some type of CIA analyst or someone that's been, involved in the White House for a number of years, I mean, it's not a stretch to I guess say that this person might have worked with Joe Biden, who was the Vice President of the United States.
Yes, but in what capacity? In what capacity?
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, as a public servant,
a working relation is different to a close relationship.
Well, from what I understand, guys, the GOP are basically on the Intelligence Committee are basically soft accusing Adam Schiff of writing this whistleblower complaint himself. That's basically what they say. Geez. That's how bad it's getting. So they want Ratcliffe, for example, wants to put Adam Schiff under oath and have him testify in front of his own committee. That's and you wouldn't say that unless you were serious. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. Oh, nothing surprises me anymore. I mean,
Right.
You know, but the biggest problem here is, of course, Donald Trump's own comments. Well, the paraphrased, because a lot of people call it a transcript, which it isn't, but the conversation that he had with the Ukrainian president.
Wow.
But we'll see.
Yeah, I don't rate that too much, because for me, once the president of the Ukraine comes out and says that he was not pressured, it ends the discussion as far as I'm concerned.
Because that was the initial
Of course
allegation.
he's going to come out there. Of course he's going to come out and say that.
But it
because,
doesn't matter.
Because saying anything different will make him look like a little bitch.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't.
It already does.
No, because this is like saying, right? Because I had somebody try to pull this move on me on my show. And they said, they said, you're looking at one thing and ignoring all the other evidence. And I said, well, hang on. If I'm doing a murder investigation and you're my partner and you say, I've got all this evidence to say that Varun was murdered. Here's the murder weapon. Here's the motive. Here's the suspect. And if I point out the window at that point and say, yeah, but there's Varun walking around on the street. And you turn around to me and say, yeah, but you're only highlighting one thing and ignoring all the other evidence. You know what I mean? No, once once a person has been found alive, there is no murder investigation.
There's got to be a body.
Once the president of the Ukraine sits there, makes jokes to the American media and says, basically, you guys are crazy, I wasn't pressured, then you can't charge the guy with pressuring him, because that's your witness. Yep. It doesn't work any other way.
And it's funny, because hang on, that whistleblower, the transcript that was released, the whistleblower was referring to that very transcript. He goes, this is in that transcript. So they released that transcript, and now the media is saying, well, it's not word for word, but hang on a second, the whistleblower, or the leaker, I should say.
That's what they were
referred
citing.
to that exact transcript.
The other thing is they talk about Rudy Giuliani and sending over Mike Pompeo and stuff. That was brought up by the Ukrainian president. He's the one who said, we want Rudy Giuliani. Yeah. And Trump was like, well, Rudy's a great guy, you know, and I believe you're doing a lot of things there with corruption, you know, very good people, fine people, tremendous people, very strong people, you know. See, the way that it was presented was Donald Trump, do me a favor, ... Joe Biden. And I was trying to explain to people, yes, you may have failed English, which is fine, but ... is a general indication that a whole bunch of words have been said in between those two things. You can't just shove those two quotes together.
Cherry picking.
And of course it's cherry picking. I think what they're doing. Hang on. One more thing, and then I'll go to you.
Yeah, sure.
I think the main issue here is, for me, that they are turning mundane, everyday things that happen in government into sensationalized things. These kinds of conversations between world leaders happen on the reg. Right? Let's not pretend otherwise.
Not these type of conversations. I don't think so.
Oh, come on. There would be far worse.
Not looking for dirt on political opponents. No, I don't.
But it's not a political opponent, though. We're talking about interior corruption. You know, corruption scandals.
And if you can say it's about looking for dirt. You can say it's about looking for dirt.
Donald Trump's.
Here's the other thing.
Concerned about the levels of corruption in Kiev.
But we can say the same. But this is the thing, though. We can say the same thing about the Democrats. Because they've been investigating a political opponent under the guise of looking for corruption for 3 years. So now when Donald Trump says, I want to investigate this guy for corruption, they say, oh, it's only for politics. And it's like, well, hang on, you've just spent the last 3 years telling us that it's got nothing to do with politics. It's all about looking for corruption.
That's a problem.
And people have been saying, well, Donald Trump should go along with it. He should go along with it. He shouldn't try to stop the investigation, even if it is political. He should go along with it, because not going along with it would be bad politics. And now the same people who've been saying that have said, oh, Donald Trump overstepped the mark here. It's insane to me.
And they
Sorry to rant.
Sorry to rant. They can be both wrong. I mean, there's for me, reading that conversation, I guess you could say the paraphrase conversation, there is no other conclusion that one can get, come that it was a quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
I don't know how you get there.
Me neither.
Yeah, well, there you go. Because of course he can get there. I mean, what else could it be?
How? Because he wasn't. There was no leverage.
You're inferring a quid pro quo.
There was no
Yeah,
leverage.
well, that's it. Because sometimes you don't have to quid pro quo, explicitly, and
now it's just building a narrative out of something, the way you want to see it. But
fortunately, the law doesn't work that way. Fortunately, the law doesn't work that way. Just because you feel like
this is not about throwing him behind bars. There's nothing like that. This is about, is this a political problem for Donald Trump? And absolutely it is. When he's calling around to our world leaders and trying to set it up meetings with Rudy or whatever.
But even the way you're presenting it now, to me, is disingenuous.
He's a swamp creature. Right? He's a swamp creature. He's just another swamp creature. And that's what it is. And it will come out eventually. Even
the way you're presenting it now, even your presentation of the situation right now, to me, smacks of being disingenuous. Like Donald Trump is going, your words, he's going around calling up other world leaders to try and attack or try and get dirt on his opponents. And when I read the transcript, I do not see that at all. Ron, what do you?
No, I don't see it at all.
Like, I'm amazed that you can get to that point so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. I mean, that's
okay. Well, we'll agree to disagree.
That's that's how people on a certain position talk. It's not it's not literal. But
it has to be. That's the thing.
It has to be. But that's not how they talk.
If it's not literal, then it didn't happen in terms of the law.
No. See, let me just finish on this note. The problem that progressives really got in trouble, is one of the problems with migration in Europe, with continental Europe. All these stories used to come in of people getting raped by migrants, this and that, and they would look you in the eye and say, this is not even happening. You're misinterpreting this. This isn't even happening. And what the problem was that progressives were talking to people like they're fucking idiots. And this is kind of the same situation that what the Trump, I guess, sympathizers out there are trying to push to other people. I mean, I know how to read that transcript, and that's fine. And if you disagree, you want to take another way, that's fine. But I know the discussion between Donald Trump and the president of the Ukraine was you scratch my back, you scratch my, just have a look for, some dirt on Hunter Biden for me so I can shiv Joe Biden in the presidential election. Okay. And that's all there is to it.
Okay.
Now, is that impeachable?
Hang on.
Is that impeachable? Yes. No. Does it mean he should be booted from office? In my opinion, no.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. Okay. You've said your piece. That's fine. Let me layer on a few more layers to this conversation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk, if you want to talk about the politics, the cynical political side of this, then let's talk about the cynical political side. First of all, if they move to impeach this guy, it will be one of the most monumental political suicides of all time by the Democrats. Because
I agree. I think they won't do it.
No,
that's what I think.
They would have taken the vote.
My opinion has been strong on this for the last 2 years, and I'm not changing now. And I think I'm still right in that the whole investigation, impeachment discussion, the point of the investigations into Donald Trump is not to find corruption. It's not to find some truth. The point of the investigation is the investigation. It's so you can roll into 2020 and run campaign ads and say, Donald Trump is currently being investigated by 5 congressional bodies. Can you trust a man like Donald Trump? Vote
and
Democrats for
president. To
president.
drown any other opposition voice out completely.
There's another thing too. I just want to add on to the Ukraine side of this. Yeah. When the new government of Mr. Zelensky came into the Ukraine and Poroshenko was removed, the former prosecutor. Now, to say that it's all made up about Joe Biden is plainly false. We saw Joe Biden sitting on stage at the CFR bragging about using taxpayer money to pressure a foreign government into doing something different, to fire a prosecutor, right? Now, you can say, it had nothing to do with Hunter Biden. Fine. But the charge you're leveling at Donald Trump is that he was using taxpayer money to force another government to do something. Okay, so now we're doing the let's attack him for the same thing that we do thing. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is when it is more obvious than anything Donald Trump said.
I think the Bidens are absolutely corrupt, and there's probably
that's fine. But we can only talk about what we can prove, right? The other thing here is that I think hasn't been spoken about enough is the former prosecutor in the Ukraine. They say they investigated the Bidens, right, in relation to this energy company Burisma. Now, when the new government came in, they requested all of those files. I don't know if you know this or not. Very few people are reporting on this. Lee Stranahan is one. I don't know if you know Lee Stranahan. He does some pretty good work, even though he works for the Russians. He was reporting on this, that when the new Ukrainian government came in, they requested all of these documents in relation to the Bidens back in like January. So a lot earlier than this conversation happened. And the outgoing government said, "Oh, sorry, we've lost all that. We've lost the servers. They just went missing." And it smacks of hitting iPhones with hammers. Do you know what I mean? So apparently the Bidens have been cleared in terms of any wrongdoing and any corruption, but we have no documentation of it happening. And don't you think that's like now, isn't that kind of a red flag? So if you... Like, I'm not somebody that talks about 4D chess with Trump all the time. I think sometimes it looks like it and sometimes it's not. Sometimes maybe he is and other times we like to think that he is. But he's... Yeah,
mostly it's by mistake.
It could be.
Anyway. Yeah.
And who knows what that level is.
Yep.
But do you think that there is a possibility here that this situation with the Bidens, when you take that into consideration, do you think that the fact that Democrats are going so hard on this, that it could blow their own toes off? You know, like they could be shooting their own bollocks
absolutely
off?
It could. Absolutely it could.
Right, so let's see how this happens. Let's see how this turns. Because like I said, right now, the State Department and the DOJ have got their nose right up Adam Schiff's asshole at this point, seeing how close he was to this whistleblower.
Sure, I think there's absolutely, this could backfire into the Democrats' face. However, the president, or another way, the leader of a state should not be negotiating terms on some type of deals, be it, some type of defense contracts or not, and then throwing in personal requests to make things happen in regards to getting dirt on political opponents for an election in the following year. No excuse. It doesn't fucking matter what servers went missing, Clearbit, lost iPhones. It doesn't fucking matter. He should not be making these type of conversations with a president of another state, and that's it. And it was a fuck up by Trump, big time. And he's going to be. And you know what? And the question here is, did he do it on purpose? See, and that's where the 4D chess comes in, because all this, the Mueller investigation is over, and some of Trump's best work has been when he's under fire. And did he create just a controversy on his own, just to rile up his base? That's another thing that, one could explore, I guess. Everything's on the table.
Well, yeah. Just to that, if I can, I've got like a 90-second clip here from the good people of Newsbusters have put together. And if you don't keep an eye on the website, newsbusters.org, then you're missing out, because these guys really do put together some tremendous work from time to time. They grabbed this little piece of a discussion on MSNBC talking about what Trump... It's very interesting that you bring that up. I think that's a very insightful thing. Varun's just stepped back into the room. He had to go to the little boys' room.
Guys.
That's all right. Ads was just saying, is there a possibility here that Trump dropped the Joe Biden the Joe Biden thing in conversation with the Ukrainian president for the specific reason of making himself a target, because that's a great way to rile up his base, and he operates good when he's under pressure. And I'm not saying it's true or not, but let's put it on the table. Let's discuss the possibility here, because he released the transcript of the phone conversation. He didn't have to do that.
Yep. Okay.
Didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Because the Democrats were making ground by insinuating everything that was in this conversation, and he came, well, just give it to him. I don't care. But that's driven the conversation, right? And so I just want to play just to back up Adam's point. I had this clip ready to go before the show, so this is serendipitous. This is a clip of MSNBC talking about Trump talking about this at his rally, right?
The president delivers vicious attacks on his Democratic rivals overnight at his first rally since the start of the impeachment inquiry.
It was quite a performance last night. The president spoke about this impeachment inquiry in almost apocalyptic terms, saying that Democrats and the radical left were trying to destroy American democracy.
There you go.
He looked out at his supporters and said that what they were trying to do was, quote, erase your vote like it never existed. And you played just one clip from the way he went after Joe Biden, but he went on in deeply personal ways, talking about Biden and
Pardon me, it's from ABC, not MSNBC.
his son Hunter, using the kind of language that most people would not let their children use. And regarding the Democratic leaders, he spoke about Nancy Pelosi saying, quote, she's either really stupid or she has really lost it.
At his first rally since the impeachment inquiry began, President Trump angrily railed against Democrats.
These people are sick. I'm telling you, they're sick.
And escalated his rhetoric against former Vice President Joe Biden.
He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's ass.
Biden, who alongside many of his Democratic colleagues participated in an LGBTQ town hall last evening.
That'll show him. Look at these fucking stuck-up people, man. He was using terrible language. Isn't it fucking hilarious? All right, so to the point, to the discussion at hand. Could it be possible that Donald Trump did this on purpose? I'll just quickly go through the impeachment thing the way I see it. Impeachment is very unpopular with most people. I think that voters see that as the political class trying to do what they want and ignore the will of the people, so to speak. Even if people don't, if voters don't like a president or a prime minister, they want to remove them themselves at the ballot box. They don't want other politicians doing it. I think that's a truthism. Now, there are a lot of polls going around saying 53% support impeachment. That's false because if you look at the question, it's do you support impeachment or further investigation? Yep. Now, further investigation is 35%. Impeachment is 20-something%. So now they're saying 54% support impeachment. No. 20-something%.
They word it differently. It's impeachment inquiry.
Right.
That's what they support.
That doesn't mean that they support impeachment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is fine.
And the other thing here is there are around 70 congressional seats that are held on razor-thin margins, Varun, that are in Donald Trump's states that flipped to the Democrats in the midterms in 2018.
Impeachment will be unpopular there.
Impeachment might be very popular in New York and LA and Minnesota, where it's already very deep blue. It's not going to flip to the GOP. Yep. In those congressional districts where we're talking about a few hundred votes can change an election, if the Democrats push on with impeachment and continue this conversation, I think personally that they are just going to hand the House back to the GOP.
Well, there's two questions that arise from that. Firstly, yeah, you're right, because if they were so convinced, they would have started talking about taking votes and everything, right? By now already. Yeah. But they're not. They're kind of. And Trump's kind of he's trying to call out their bluff on this whole thing.
That's the thing. That's why Trump wants them talking about impeachment.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make it better for him.
It's a loser for them. Exactly. 100%. A second question arises from this. What changed Nancy Pelosi's mind all of a sudden? Because she was against it, you remember?
Yep.
Then all of a sudden she goes, I've changed my mind on this and I think he should be impeached. Now, is that her changing her mind because she's seen something, or is that just pressure from, the squad and
from within?
From within, yeah, because she's in a fucking fucked up position now.
She's in a bind.
Yeah. She's lost her face. She's lost power.
Yep.
And it just looks like the Democratic Party is ready to kind of vomit her out.
It looks like she's got no control.
Yeah.
At all of congressional Democrats. Anything to add to that, Adam?
Well, I think the biggest problem for impeachment here is there really isn't any victim here. I mean, there's no face here of, there's no, I guess, in the Clinton impeachment saga, there was Monica Lewinsky, a young intern, that kind of got swept off her feet by a president, blah, blah, blah. Watergate, well, it didn't go to impeachment, of course, but, there was Nixon, you could say, did harm to his political opponents and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But here, it involves Ukraine. And the first thing here is, no one really gives a fuck about Ukraine, I mean, in the States, or do they care that much? And there's the different stages here. I mean, you listen to some of these pundits talk about impeachment, and because the Democrats, they got to wrap it up. They got to get in there, they got to impeach, try and impeach, and then there'll be a vote in the Senate and whatever. And they right now, how things stand, they don't have the narrative to even get close to the votes in the Senate
Well,
or anything like
no
that.
way.
And the question is here is, if it's too close to the election, then it really becomes a problem. That's something, that we were talking about before, that, if it's 6 months before the election or some time where, the primaries are ending for the Democrats, it's like, well, why can't you just wait 6 months and the people can make the judgment? And so...
Is it because they genuinely think they're going to be smashed at the next election? Because is that a possibility? Like, I know it's a talking point. I know Trump says, they want to remove me because they know they can't beat me. Is there any truth to it?
I think Trump was going to have a tough time to get reelected.
So do I. But why do this though? Then why do it? Why make it more difficult for yourself?
Look, this is about legacy. This is about people that can look back in 20 years and say, yeah, when Trump was around, the biggest Hitler of our time, that we fucking impeached him. We didn't beat him in that election. We fucking impeached him and booted him out because we're the fucking white knights riding on our white steeds, rah rah rah, blah blah blah. That's what it is. This is about pride. This is about, they don't want Donald Trump to lose the election. They want Donald Trump to go out ugly.
Okay, but that's one thing.
And
punishing people for voting him.
That's fair enough.
Right,
but another
so it never
angle
happens again.
Another angle to this is that they've invested so much into this impeachment stuff now. Like from day one, they were calling for impeachment from the day he got elected, the very next day. And so. How do they go this far and then just say, okay, we're not going to go into impeachment anymore? Because they've already rolled up their base. The base is in this impeachment fervor. If all of a sudden leadership says, no, we're not going to do the impeachment thing now, we're just going to try to get rid of him the normal way, at the ballot, that's not going to go down very well with the base, right? Because you've been promising impeachment all that while, that we're going to fight for impeachment. We're going to fight for impeachment. They've just invested too much of themselves into it.
I guess there was always talk about Trump getting impeached in his second term, 2 years out from the end of his second term. So this is a bit of a surprise. I think maybe they thought that they have enough to go the whole gambit.
Yeah. Russia collusion fell through.
Right.
Russia fell through the arse, so that didn't work, and now they're scared. And they have to they have to keep this impeachment thing going. Russia collusion's gone, now it's Ukrainian collusion.
It's going to be going right through the campaign for 2020.
Yeah.
So they can run those commercials. Hey, you can't trust Donald Trump. He's corrupt. Here's why. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I just want to make one point as well.
Sure.
The interesting part about this as well, which might be concerning for supporters of Donald Trump, is as soon as this whistleblower thing broke out, that the White House were very, very quick to release the quote-unquote transcript. Now, that could mean a lot of things. But, there is wisdom out there that, that if something bad is happening, you get it all out straight away, or part of it, or most of it. Now, maybe this is a sign that goes
against cover-up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I know, get it out, get it early, and then you can deal with it, get it out as quick as possible. Because if you sit on that and it comes out really late before the election, then it's problems, October surprise or whatever it is, then that could be a bigger problem. So they got it out. So maybe there's more, who knows?
Can I say this too? I know you're going to say that this is the wrong take, Ads, but I'm going to put and this is being purely objective. I don't care if it's Trump or any other world leader. For me, the most concerning part about this is we now have an atmosphere where a lot of people believe that world leaders aren't allowed to have private conversations with other world leaders because
I totally agree with that.
Shit is going to get leaked and shit is going to get spoken about. For me, that is far more dangerous than any inference that can be drawn from a private conversation. World leaders need to be able to have conversations, like spicy conversation. Exactly. Yep. And with the threat of somebody always going to release a phone call or release a transcript or what have you, or leak stuff from a conversation, that's toxic, mate. That can't happen,
Yeah.
I know we believe in we want everything, we want all of the information, but let's be adults here. There are certain levels of discussion that it would be wholly dissatisfactory for everyday people to know what's happening between these two world leaders when they're having a private conversation. I think that's a fair thing to say.
That's why Assange was so dangerous, in a sense.
Yeah, where's he now? He's in a black hole.
Yeah, no one knows where he is now, what's happening with him. But one of the things I wanted to say was like...
Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, I know.
What's his name? Assange? Assange.
Tremendous guy.
Very good people, tremendous people.
The IG report's coming out soon, right, on the whole Ukrainian thing.
I thought it was today.
Was it today?
It was supposed to be this day, but
okay, well,
probably pushed it back.
I thought it was the end of October, but you've got the IG report coming out soon. You've got Bar and Durham expanding their investigation because of all the stuff coming out from this whole Ukraine deal.
They flew over to Italy not long ago.
Yeah, they flew over to Italy as well. So, look, there's a lot coming through the pipeline.
Is that Rudy or?
No. William Barr and John Durham.
Yeah. And so I think Trump has a handle on the situation. He knows that there's a lot more.
Ooh, hot take.
Yeah, I think so. That's just my hunch. So he look, it's a good move for him. He goes, let the Democrats do it to themselves.
Okay. Anything that?
One thing I think we can all agree on that Rudy Giuliani has been an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, you need to be following Rudy on Twitter because it's just fucking. It's like he's like the American Bob Catter.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic stuff.
It's a mixture between the American Bob Catter and a Republican Sidney Blumenthal. I don't know. He needs to be dispensed of. And apparently today I was reading some reports that Donald Trump is distancing himself from Rudy. So
that never works out well in the end, does it?
No. Yeah, that's it.
Because if Rudy Giuliani is like distance from Trump, he's going to come after him. He'll be all over CNN. Then CNN would be wanting interviews with him. They'll be praising him.
I don't think Rudy would do the Scaramucci move.
But they would be. They'll be praising him and trying to coax him to come over.
Sure.
And talk shit about Trump.
Well, Rudy's been doing CNN and MSNBC the whole time anyway. Like he's a regular on Chris Cuomo.
Yeah, that's a massive problem because the more Rudy talks, the bigger problem. The more problems he causes.
The more face palms there are.
All right, we've been going for about an hour and a half. Let's go final comments, wrap ups. Varun Prasad, and then Voice of Reason, Adam J.
Look, like I said, I'm looking forward to the IG report. And I'm really looking forward to the Bar and Durham thing coming out because it's been a fair few years now. It feels like the carrot that's been dangled in front of a horse. We keep running after it, but we never quite get there. I just want to take a bite.
Just take a bite. Yeah. Voice of Reason, Adam J.
It's beautiful. Had a great bushwalk.
Noisy pterodactyls swooping you.
Yeah, it's starting to rain now, which is great. Really enjoying that.
Okay.
And keep soldiering on.
Beautiful.
It's going to be an interesting end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And the election, coming up to the election, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I'll bring it on.
The meltdowns, the win constant is going to be very good.
Yeah, and I think as we get closer, as things intensify, we need to do this more often. If we can't, it's difficult. People have been asking me lately, hey, when is another Common Discourse coming out? Logistically, it's very difficult. We are three grown men who have our own lives and our own working schedules.
And we live far from each other.
There's a bit of distance to cover. So it's actually pretty difficult to get us all in the studio at the same time. But I think I will do, if we, let's try to do like maybe once a month,
once
like you were saying.
Is perfect, yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm really, really want to, like, even if it's a call in for, an hour during the week at some time, if we can do that, then, as more stuff comes out, I think we should probably be doing more stuff for the few people who enjoy listening to this podcast. Yep. So we're not leaving them in the lurch.
Yeah,
but
sure.
What about a quick question from my side? Who's going to be the Democratic nominee for the President of the United States?
Good question. At the beginning, I had my money on a dark horse, and I thought when I saw Pete Buttigieg coming around, I thought, well, here's a guy. But here's the thing: like, he's ex-military, Rhodes Scholar. He is from the very same district demographic that the Democrats need to win back in order to take back the White House. The Democrats only need 3 states, right? They only need to get back Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and then they're back in the White House. That's basically the nuts and bolts. So here's a guy from that heartland, just outside of it in Indianapolis. So I thought he's the man, but then he went too far on the woke shit. So he's kind of destroyed himself. For me, I wouldn't be surprised if Elizabeth Warren ends up being the nominee. As crazy as that sounds.
Well, she's got the momentum behind her at the moment, but let's see. Because everyone, they seem to be taking turns, with this momentum. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
Elizabeth...
Never underestimate the Democrats' ability to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, look, Elizabeth Warren definitely has the momentum at the moment, but I don't know if it'll last or not. I know, what's his name, the socialist?
Sanders is funny.
Sanders. I mean, he's had the
Sanders' chance was 4 years ago. He's not even in the top four in polling.
And now with his health condition and everything, I think he's done. So look, it's a hard question to answer.
The reason that Biden is the number one front runner for all intents and purposes is the fact that he's very popular with a specific demographic, that being African American women between the age of 35 and 60. Believe it or not, that's why he's like the top guy at the moment, because he has the African American vote.
Yeah.
That's why you see all the candidate debates, they attack him on race, because they need to chip away at his African American support. So who do you think is going to be the nominee? Ads?
I keep on thinking that someone might come from left field completely that we're not even talking about. But
Tulsi?
I think maybe that time's
Yang.
No. But I'm pretty sure they would have had to shown face by now, at least
Michelle Obama.
Jeez, no way.
I think Michelle Obama will run in 4 years from now. Definitely.
I'm hoping for Joe. Because I believe the debates will be truly epic. Truly epic.
Once upon a time, I was down here at the swimming pools, and over there it was all council housing, and this guy named Corn Pop came up to me with a rusty blade. What the hell is this guy talking about? He obviously doesn't love the gangsters. I love the gangsters. Great people, tremendous people. Vote for me. What do you got to lose?
and I just think the debates will be absolutely epic. I think debates between Trump and Elizabeth Warren will be, I don't know, kind of cringeworthy. Not because of Trump, but more because of Warren, which she's an absolute hag and a bat and an old.
Her anti-corporatist message plays well, though.
Yeah, it does, and it's very sad. In a way, because
if it's Warren in the debates, I think Trump will crush her.
But he's got to be careful as well, because Warren,
she's
Clinton
more well liked.
She can play the victim card.
Yeah. Clinton was really damaged by the time Trump got to her, but Warren's a little bit different. But
a few lies coming out. I mean, obviously there was the DNA test. That was the big one. But now, the latest one was she said I was fired for being pregnant from the college, but, she left on her own accord. Those are things to be exploited.
That's right.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt Democrats, though. You can say that kind of shit. You can lie. That doesn't hurt them for some reason. All right. Well, on that note, it's been a good show. We'll wrap it up now. Be sure to follow the Twitter account at TCDTweet to keep up with any future shows. Like I said, we'll try to pump out more content. And the website that we've been talking about for a while, it's ready to go. We just need to do a little bit of work on it behind the scenes, like start populating it. But I think we will aim for that to be raring to go in 2020, like by the end of the year. So thecommondiscourse.com is where you can find that in the future. But we'll make a big announcement. We'll do a live show when we launch the website, and we'll have it up on screen and everybody can join in the conversation that way. So to my co-host Varun Prasad and the voice of reason Adam J, I am Boogie Bumper. Until next time, thanks so much. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you.